And we're here, and it's Saturday, and we're here, yay!
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Women of Nerd Culture. We are the Women of Nerd Culture. My name is Sarah, and with me, as always, is Becca. That way. Today, we are doing another character dive on one of the most controversial characters from Star Trek. As they say, there's the right way, the wrong way, and the Janeway. Yes, it's Captain Kathryn Janeway. Oh, Janeway, first female captain of a starship shown on TV.
Yeah.
Kate says she has to be responsible while playing such a significant role. Controversial for her decisions, and yes, we'll talk about some of them today. There is a whole host of opinions on this on the internet, so please go and read about them. Form your own opinions on it. Today, this is a conversation between me and Becca. These are mainly our opinions, but we may quote a few from the internet. If you'd like to tell us about your opinion of Janeway, please leave us a comment below, and we can have a chat. But don't be a dick.
Yes, it's the first rule of Wonk. Do not be a dick. But yeah, I think it's so hard with Kathryn Janeway because there is the 90s watch,
Mhm.
and now there's the watch that I've done in the last year.
Yeah.
And both versions are just as valid, but they have got very, very different opinions because one version is I'm a 12-year-old and now I'm 36. So there's a big gap.
Yeah. But yeah, I've seen loads of it. I'm by no way as much of a Star Trek fan as you are. Um, I only recently became a Star Trek convert, but I've seen opinions on the internet about how great Janeway is, how terrible Janeway is. But one question that we saw in particular got us thinking. Me personally, I hadn't considered it before, but I can understand where the question comes from. Today, we're going to discuss at the end, is Janeway the Federation's greatest, cleverest villain?
Yes. Yes.
So, shall we start with the norm and just go in with what was your first experience of Janeway, Becca?
Oh, well, obviously, I watched it back in the 90s on Sky One with my dad and then on BBC Two because we didn't always have Sky. I can remember watching it and I just thought, oh, this is epic. We finally got a female captain. Everything is good with the world. And then we had some controversial episodes that we'll get into later on because I
Yes.
think they deserve their own blog.
Yes.
But as a 90s child, so I was around the age of, I want to say maybe 8ish when I first started watching it. So
Mm.
obviously, when it ended in just a few years later, obviously after 7 seasons, I love the fact that we had a female captain. I think it was long overdue to have
Mhm.
a main character female captain because there were other captains. You know, we had Shelby and
Yep.
other ones, but to have a main lead was amazing. And I don't think they've done it justice since.
Mm.
What about yourself? Because obviously you didn't watch it in the original run.
No, I didn't. I've actually only become like I would say yeah, I would say I'm a Star Trek fan now. But I wasn't really bothered by it when I was younger. But watching the lads on Trekking Up North, Captain Goodwill and Science Officer Synoiz, um, just hearing the way they spoke about it with such passion and like it kind of just inspired me to go, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. I'm
And
gonna
you
give it a
did.
go.
You binge
And
watched.
I went through the lot. I
Yeah.
have done except Discovery because I don't have Paramount. Um, but yes, I've I haven't seen the third season of Strange New Worlds, but I don't know actually if that's out yet. And I haven't seen the final season of um oh shit. The animated one.
Prodigy.
No, not
Oh,
Prodigy,
lower
that's
deck. Lower
Lower Decks.
decks. Lower
Why did
decks.
that go out of my mind?
Lower decks.
Just complete brain fart there. I haven't seen the final season of Lower Decks, but I've seen like the first four or something.
You've seen more than me because I've not seen Prodigy.
I've watched Prodigy, yes.
I've not seen it, and I know that's going to probably give a bit of a skew with answer to things later on because I haven't seen Prodigy. I've only seen the original run and obviously her appearance in the movies.
Well,
But
I'm not gonna.
yeah,
Do you have the intent of watching it at some point?
I already know spoilers. Spoilers don't bother me because I've got no. Basically, I'm not gonna give Paramount any of my money. So I won't be watching it properly. And I know it's on Netflix, but the first season isn't. Or am I lying on that one? Are you able to
Oh,
watch the whole thing on Netflix?
I don't know right now, but I've definitely watched the both seasons on
Oh,
Netflix.
okay. Maybe I'll give Netflix my money then.
That might have changed because it has been a little while since season 2 was out, and I did watch season 2 on the first day.
Fair. See, like I said, my girl binge watched. She is binge watched a lot of this. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. Bow to that
I've,
power.
I've actually been rewatching some of Voyager as well in preparation for this. So
Yes.
I have a couple of episodes fresh in my mind. Not a lot, but a couple.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but yes, so again, yeah, thankfully, like, well, mostly everything Star Trek wise that for the series was on Netflix, so I had easy access because
We
I
are
already
so lucky. We are
I
so lucky to
know.
have it.
I started with Deep Space Nine at the behest of Captain Goodwill.
Yeah.
He said, watch it and it will change your life. And well, I guess it kind of kept me going on Star Trek, didn't it? So in theory, it did
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
it. But then I did go on to Voyager as the second one. And from the get-go, you can just tell that Janeway is an absolute force of nature, like from her
Hmm.
very first appearance talking to Tom Paris.
Do you know that the actress that we got as the Kathryn Janeway wasn't the original actress?
I know that. I do know that bit, but I can't remember who the actress originally
I can never remember
was.
her name. But she was in one of the greatest films that I love, 100 Days of Anne.
All
Um,
right.
it's an old film.
Mhm.
Um, we got the better deal because I do not think that actress from the videos that I've seen, the scenes that I've seen, I think she made the right choice in deciding that TV wasn't for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, because oh, the Catherine Janeway that we got, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just something we're gonna come on to. Like we all know how much I love Kate Mulgrew.
Yes,
It
yes.
gets mentioned every episode, so you know, if you don't know it by now, where have you been? Um,
It's one of our features. Okay, let's get the features out. So we like dragons. We often sing down the witch's road, and Janeway
anyway,
Janeway appears. So yeah, we've got all three of our characters. They're out of the way.
maybe it's not Janeway, sometimes it is Kate Mulgrew.
Yes, yes, Kate Mulgrew. More than that is it's normally Kate. Yeah, but shall we get into nitty gritty? What sets Janeway apart from other Starfleet captains like Picard, Cisco,
Oh,
or Kirk?
I mean, the fact that she's a woman for starters, because
Yes,
we haven't really had the woman captain as the main person
not until
before.
not Strange New Worlds, Discovery and Lower Decks, which I
Yeah,
love.
exactly.
I do love those characters.
Mhm.
But they're not main features until later in Discovery. You know,
Mhm.
we do not have a main female lead for all of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I keep getting confused on Strange New Worlds and Discovery because they've both got the same uniforms at points, and I get a bit confused because we've got Anton's in both.
Of course.
Anton with his fabulous hair is in both. But yeah, I'm gonna let you answer this first before I get on my little horse and
Mm.
just ride off.
Well, I kind of get the feeling that Janeway is more of a team player than like Picard, especially because I mean, you get the impression from Tom Paris because Janeway was a member of Tom's father's crew,
Yeah.
and he states that he only took the best and brightest. So she knows how to work as a team, whereas Picard, when he was younger, was a bit of a rebel and like, how did he lose his heart? By getting into fights in bars.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas I can't see Janeway doing the same thing. I think she's kind of like
No.
one of those, basically a SWAT.
Yeah, and
It's on the
obviously
straight and narrow.
her specialty was science, so she was a
Yeah.
scientist before she
Uh-huh.
got into command.
Yes. Yes. Um, I don't think the others have had to deal with as many first contacts in such a relatively short amount of time.
No, not at all.
She's probably logged more hours in space than any other Starfleet captain or admiral before her. Um, I mean, it was meant to be a 3-week mission that turned into years, although I'm not doubting the other captains would have managed. It's kind of like we don't have the
Yes.
luxury of seeing how they would have done it.
Yeah.
Um, she's tough as nails and she gets our ship out of some really complex situations. Like some are more complex than some of the other captains have faced.
Yeah.
I mean, putting it this is simplicity terms. I'm not belittling what the other captains did in these cases.
Yes.
This is just in the simplest layman's terms. Picard fought the Borg, got himself assimilated. Another time he fought the Borg, got his ship almost completely assimilated. Cisco fought the Borg, lost his ship, lost his wife.
Yeah.
Janeway fights the Borg, takes down the entire collective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might not be the best choice, but I would follow her into battle.
Yes.
Her,
Yeah.
her success rate is just it's really high for like how long they were in the Delta Quadrant. There weren't really that many casualties, and like
Apart from the shuttles.
well, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah, but like humanoid alien, there
Yeah.
weren't that many from her crew.
Yeah.
She's completely dedicated to the crew and the safety of the crew. And I mean, another example I've got in Dreadnought, she's kind of showing how selfless she is in the episode Dreadnought. She's willing to sacrifice herself for the lives of 2 million aliens that she has barely had contact with. She literally goes up, says, "Hi, let's crash into this missile that's going to blow up your planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll take the missile out, save all your 2 million lives."
Yeah. And then there are other episodes that not so much.
No, 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 no. I'm not. We're going into them later.
Not
This is
so
this is
much.
this is what sets her apart.
Yeah, not so much. Okay,
Um,
mine are very similar threads.
mhm,
I've put the obviously isolation. Janeway has no backup. She has no Starfleet to consult. She's made all those high stake decisions alone in uncharted
yes,
space. Something that none of the others have faced long term.
yes,
Um, I feel very much like yourself. She's got the balance of science and authority. She's a scientist first, and that scientific curiosity. It's basically, I would say, it's the balance of her diplomacy and her ethics.
mhm,
It's very much unlike Kirk's impulsiveness, or I would say Picard's philosophical detachment.
mhm,
I've put her moral consistency under pressure. Um, in most things. Janeway
yeah,
often holds Federation ideas, even when doing so makes her job harder,
mhm,
especially in the Quadrant where the rules are so fluid.
so different.
I would also put that she's maternal and she's commanding. Um, she's very very nurturing in her command approach,
Yes,
but it doesn't diminish her authority and offer when she offers that emotional support,
mhm,
as well as the amazing leadership. The one that the prime example that I kind of have is that moment when Samantha Wildman comes to her and tells her that she's pregnant,
yeah,
and not only does it give her hope, it it kind of she's very very commanding, and she's like, oh, I've now got to make this decision for the next generation. It's such a hard concept, and I don't think if it was a male captain, that scene and several other scenes
yeah.
along the same way would have felt the same.
Mhm, mhm. I'm not saying that there's like obviously no male captains that would have the empathy or the sympathy and things like that for that side of things, but it's kind of like coming from a woman's point of view, you kind of get it that little bit extra.
Yeah, Yeah, and it's that maternal approach, you know.
Yeah, the
Yes,
maternal side.
Janeway's not a mum, you know. She's not a mum. She's a mum dog.
Uh,
She's a mum to her dogs.
she's a furry mum.
Yeah, she's a furry mum. But yeah, it's just I like Janeway in that type of scenes.
Hmm.
I really, really do. Do we think Janeway ever crossed ethical lines to protect her crew, and why was she justified or not justified?
Right. I mean, yes, she has wildly varying views on the Prime Directive, when to
Yeah,
apply it and when not to. And I mean, yes, some people can say it's partially down to writing, but I imagine the crew kind of like have no idea what to expect because they don't know which way she's going to go.
yeah,
Um, but then you could look at it from, well, she's tried X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to have to flex it another way and try A, B, and C.
yeah,
Um, I mean, again, like you said, with it being the Quadrant, rules are completely different. It's completely uncharted. You don't know what you're going to come up against. You're going to need some flexibility with the Prime Directive for their own survival.
yeah.
Um, but I mean,
I've got some examples. I've got some
mhm,
examples. I've got destroying the caretaker's array, which
yes,
obviously stranded the crew in the first place.
yes,
Um, Forming uneasy alliances with. I've put sort of. I've put the Borg as probably the biggest one.
yes, definitely the biggest one.
And then I'm gonna have to mention it. Tuvix.
It's where I've put my Tuvix notes.
Yeah.
It's where
Okay.
I put them.
We might as well delve into
Let's do
this.
the Tuvix chat.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Now, let's first make this clear. It was a very tough decision and not one that I envy at all.
No,
It can be seen as wanting some of her, like one of her oldest friends back,
yeah,
two crew members versus one person. So it's kind of like utilitarian, the greatest good for the greatest number, saving two people over one,
yeah,
like the trolley problem. Like the trolley problem.
yeah,
I mean, for those who don't know utilitarianism, it's a principle from from philosophy. Focuses on maximizing happiness and well-being for the majority of who it affects, who that decision affects. Um, if you want to look further into it, Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill are people to look up for that side of things. But I think this is kind of what they've used as their turning point for the Tuvix decision. They've gone complete utilitarianism for it. Um, you aim to determine the most ethical choice by considering the overall consequences of the actions, the idea that the action should be chosen to produce the greatest good for the greatest number of people. The morality of an action is determined by its outcomes rather than the nature of the action itself. In this framework, yeah, a utilitarian might argue that policy that benefits a large number of people, even if it harms a smaller group, is ethically justifiable because it maximizes the overall well-being. Janeway is utilitarian. I agree with her decision to separate them, but the method was not great, and I know there were a few in the Facebook group that kind of went down that side of things.
yeah, yeah. I 100% agree, and I love that you've explained it better than I ever could.
I did an A level in philosophy, so there was a little bit of kind of like that lurking in the back of my head, going, "This is a complete philosophical argument here."
It is, and it's a philosophical argument that has been going on for 30
Yes,
years.
yes, I'll agree. Like, look, the thing is, yes, we all have a right to be alive and to survive, but so did Tuvok and Neelix.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think people who are watching this should put in the comments what their views are on
Yeah, yeah,
this whole issue. Because it is one of those issues that it kind of makes or breaks. Is Janeway
yeah.
Starfleet's cleverest villain? It is one of those questions.
When I was
Mm.
looking up examples, a lot of people, like, I would see this question come up a few times, like, is Janeway good? Is she a good captain? Is Janeway a bad captain? Kind of those along those lines. And a lot of people would just go, one word, Tuvix.
Yeah,
Explain it. Tuvix can mean a lot of things in the circumstances. Um,
yeah, yeah,
do you agree with the decision? Don't you agree with the decision? Do you think Tuvix should still be alive? Do you think they should have been separated? I get the thing is, right, it was an awful, awful situation
yes,
to put to put Janeway under. And it's kind of like she does take the time to consider it all. But the thing is, right, yes, Tuvix was finding his place in the world. He found his place on the crew. He made friends and stuff like that. But we've got to also think it's not just about Tuvix, Neelix, and Tuvok. It's about Tuvok's family. It's about Kez. It's about Tuvok's children.
yeah. There are so many points to that question.
Yeah,
There
it
are,
was
yeah,
horrible the way Janeway went about it.
yeah,
It definitely felt that way because, like, I mean, Tuvix was shouting, "It's an execution" and things like that, and basically it was.
yeah,
But I think they could have likely been persuaded
yeah.
over time. It might not have been immediate, but I think over time they could have been persuaded. But like, it's
Yeah, but
yeah,
I also, when this question is always asked, I always like to turn around and say to people, what would have Kirk done? What would have Picard done?
yeah.
What would have Cisco done?
Is it because she was a woman that you are disagreeing with her?
Yeah, yeah. And this is why I always kind of I push back
Yeah.
because obviously Janeway got a lot of hate in the 90s. You know, she's having a resurgence now. And there is a lot of love. I obviously put this question out onto our Instagram, and
Yes.
there was a lot of love.
I was reading those comments today. There was a
Um,
lot of love for
I
Janeway in
I
that.
really kind of I want to shout out these people. You know, you've got the Giraffe
Oh.
Sisters podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Strange New Pods, you've got Gothic Geisha 84, we've got Twin Cities podcast, we've got
Yep.
Crafty Sheen UK. Sorry, Crafty Sean UK. Apologies, that was me not looking at my screen correctly. There are so many people who had opinions on this, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them are so beautifully written.
Yes.
I am not going to be able to read them out because my accent will just ruin them. Um, but they are so beautifully written and the passion behind them is amazing. I think people need to go and just check out this post. I'll try and see if I can put the link below in our notes. But I think people should go and read what people's opinions are. And it's so some of them are really, really beautiful. I think my favorite one is from the Giraffe Sisters podcast. Where they've got a whole TED talk, and I think people need to go just check out their TED talk because it's so beautifully written.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's so controversial. It's so controversial, and I I don't think we have ever been able to have that answer. What would have Kirk done? What would have Picard
Yeah.
done? What have Cisco done? I think they would have done. I think they would have done exactly the same, and I think they would have
Thing
done it
is,
sooner.
right, I've actually got something. I was reading a couple of things on Reddit about this.
Hmm.
Um, 1 second. Who was it who said it? There was a couple that actually got me there. Um, do, 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 do. The fan base cries and whines constantly over Tuvix, yet in DS9, Cisco does almost exactly the same thing when the crazy Trill dude came to the station and removed the Dax symbiont from Jadzia.
Yes.
This is from Additional Usual 588 on Reddit, right? He also sacrificed a life to save his friend, but does the fan base say one syllable about it?
Yes.
Well, they scream
100%.
Tuvix all day long, but when Cisco does pretty much the same thing, crickets. They whine about making a hard choice to side with the Borg to save billions, even trillions of innocent lives throughout the Milky Way from species 8472, who were clearly going to annihilate everyone, yet when Cisco and the Federation are at least partially responsible for starting the Dominion War and putting millions of lives at risk, nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's oh God, it's just
It's definitely one of those questions. It's
together.
definitely one of those ones that's controversial. Um, and what annoys me about the whole Tuvok issue is the fact it's not brought up again that I can remember.
I don't remember being. I've literally just watched this episode yesterday, and I'm a couple of episodes after it now, and as far as I'm aware, it doesn't get mentioned ever again. Nobody mentions Tuvix ever again.
No, and I think that's poor writing, very very poor writing,
Yeah,
because I think it's one of those issues that would have affected
it
everyone
would have
involved,
lingered.
because her even when controversial, her decisions reflect an absolute acute awareness of the burden of command and long-term consequences.
Mhm.
You know, she remembers everything, and I'm still yeah, I think I'm actually quite annoyed on my rewatch sort of last year that this is never brought up again, because
Mhm.
it's such an interesting point, and I think I very much think she would have. She would think about this quite often. Every
Mhm.
now and then I think she would glance at Neelix or Tuvok and think, hmm, that's Tuvix, or
Yeah.
what would have happened, what could have happened. And yeah, it's
I mean, the scene of Tuvix in the ready room with her drinking tea and the kind of like just having a little chat, and she's commenting on how nice he is, how he's got
yeah,
the humor, he's a valued advisor type of thing.
yeah,
She would definitely at least have some thoughts about it.
yeah. I struggle with this question because I yes, um she consistently puts her crew's safety first and Starfleet
Mhm.
values first, even when the cost is high.
Mhm.
It I find Kathryn Janeway quite a morally grey character. Um,
Yeah. I do have
I
an example from the other side that I'm going to go into after you finish there.
yeah, no, she very very much falls into the ends justify the means trap,
Yes.
and I can't tell if that's really poor writing or whether that's how the character generally is,
Yeah.
because the consistency isn't always there.
Mhm.
I'll let you carry on.
My other example for this ethical side of Janeway was the relationship with Seven of Nine.
Ooh, yes.
While she's trying to rescue her from the Borg and restore her humanity, she's encouraging Seven to explore free will and so forth. And says something like, Captain, I believe, blah, blah, blah. But then Janeway shoots her down at times and just says, you're wrong, as in a fuck your free will, you'll meet my expectations and do as I tell you, where um Seven tries to think for herself, but Janeway just comes out with no. And she's still forced to do what Janeway wants to do anyway. I mean, yes, she is captain, and she does have to make the ultimate decision on what the crew do, but Seven is still learning, and
Yeah,
you've got to remember she was assimilated when she was very young, and she's technically still like a child when she's coming back to her humanity. Sometimes you learn by doing, even if that doing fails.
yeah,
It's a learning experience, and it's how children learn.
yes. This is one of my very, very big frustrations, and
Hmm.
it's such a good example of how Janeway is morally grey,
Yes.
because they get this fully grown adult who has been assimilated since she was 6 or 7,
Something like that.
and they do not let her grow. They stick her into the science department
Yep.
and expect her to have all the answers. There is no training wheels.
Yep. Yep.
It's so annoying.
I can understand with like Jamie being so enthusiastic about the science side of things herself and wants to maybe like, how some parents want to, I'm not going to say force the children to go a certain way, but wants to encourage them to follow
Yeah,
a certain path.
yeah,
And I guess it could be looked at that way with her looking after Seven in like a, well, I can't even really say that she's doing it in a motherly fashion,
yeah.
but
Because it's not.
she's trying to guide her on a path whilst encouraging Seven to do the opposite.
Yeah, morally grey.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's a complete grey area,
yeah,
and it's not justified how she treats Seven.
no, not at all. I actually think it's worse than the Tuvok
Yeah,
issue,
yeah, no,
to
I
be
agree
fair,
with you.
because it's so much longer term.
Hmm. It's
But
it's like over years, yeah.
I want to get to a more positive part. What is your favorite
Right.
Janeway leadership moment and why?
Well, there are a couple of leadershipy ways, but I kind of just almost picked my favorite Janeway moments for these ones, because there's an episode where they're trying to the episode early on where they're trying to choose a chief engineering officer,
Yes.
and Janeway just kind of like sees her mind working the same way as Balana's, and they're one's here on the screen and one's here on the screen, and they're both facing each other, and then they just kind of like start saying the same thing at the same time,
Yeah.
and it ends up like a I didn't know it, but we're best friends now like moment. I think it makes her appear more human and more approachable than other captains, because she's not the ideal professional in that scene. She's just getting passionate about an idea and
Yeah.
has someone to share that passion with, and that just kind of takes over. Um, it definitely makes her more human than just somebody who throws a bunch of rules at you.
Yeah.
That's certainly one of them. Um, I think I would like to pick a moment when you see Janeway's humor as well.
Okay.
I'm going to be cheeky and choose two. The
It's all
second one's
right.
only a show on the but if I just say the salamanders, you'll know what I mean, right?
I'm so glad you brought this up.
The salamanders. I like how she just accepts that her and Paris had babies, and he's trying to like apologize and be reasonable about it and things like that when they're back on the ship as humans. But then she kind of puts him at ease by saying, how does he know that she didn't initiate it?
Yeah. Okay.
And I just think the look on his face was kind of like, whoa.
It's horror. It's
It's
pure
it's
horror.
pure horror that the captain.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought up this moment because this is one of my favorite moments.
Yeah,
But it's actually my favorite just funny moment, not because it's obviously Kathryn Janeway or Tom Paris. It's just one of my favorite funny moments because it is the moment that has created a million memes.
yes,
Okay. And I feel like not only do we need to have justice for Tuvix, we need justice for the lizard babies.
yes.
They were abandoned. Their mama and their dada abandoned them. And as a mom, I'm like, that's not right.
I mean, I get in nature some creatures are basically just left to fend for themselves, like once they're
Yes.
born. But
Yeah.
we know nothing about these salamanders, as far as
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, there was nothing else like them in the world, because it's kind of like that evolutionary stage of humanity, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. I just think it's
So,
wild. I think it's wild that this happened in the 90s Star Trek.
but you know what? I think it's I think actually we can take from it a leadership moment, because it's the well-being of the crew, and she doesn't want Paris to sit there thinking, "Oh my God, I coerced my captain into this."
Yeah, 100%.
She puts it in,
Yeah, I've kind of got to
while
give
he's
it that.
shocked. While he's shocked, yes, he is shocked. I think that having her do that, say that line to him, just puts his mind at ease, really,
Yeah.
eventually. Not straight away, but eventually that it'll just make him kind of go, oh, everything's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My moment, and I've gone for an easy one. I've got
Okay.
no apologies over
Oh, no, no,
this.
none needed.
I could have picked, the handling of the McKee. I could have picked standing up to Q.
Yep.
Um, I have picked Endgame and her stand against the Borg Queen.
Mm,
Sacrificing personal comfort and the safety of a future version of herself to
yeah,
ensure the crew getting home. It is such a blend of personal sacrifice,
yeah.
brilliant tactics, and moral clarity. Even though I do believe she's still morally grey, I feel like
You can have
it's
our moments.
yeah, it's a full circle moment for her.
Yeah.
It's her best leadership moment. It reveals empathy, resolve, and refusal to take the easy way because she could have taken the easy way, but yeah, it's just such a brilliant moment, and it's one of those moments that even now I still go back and watch that episode. There are
Yeah.
certain episodes of Voyager that I watch quite regularly, and that is that part that episode Endgame is one of them, because
Mhm.
Janeway is badass in that moment. She has many badass moments, but that is
She has
her
many.
best one, and that's her best leadership.
Yes.
That's
That's a really good one. I wouldn't even say that's the easy way out. It just genuinely is a really good moment.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the one that it's the one that kind of sticks in me more than any other
Hmm.
defining moment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do we think Janeway has to be tougher or more emotionally guarded because she is a woman in command?
Definitely. Right, that's my
Yes.
no. I've wrote quite a few notes on this, but yeah, just definitely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we don't know how many captains are female before her, or if there were any, like when Voyager starts.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be the background information. I know there's like novels and everything like that in the
Yeah.
background, which I'll be honest, I don't know much about the background of Star Trek. I'm still new to it.
Yeah.
Um, but from my point of view, as somebody new going into Star Trek, we don't know that information from the show.
No.
But when she starts, it kind of like you get the impression that she's got to make an impression. You've kind of got like, I kind of almost feel that's why they made her a bit morally grey, to kind of make her stand out a bit more rather than for just the sake of being a woman. She stood out a bit more for other reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, even Q mentions, oh, like women captains, as if it's a rarity.
I I like to think that's very much 90s writing. If I'm brutally honest, because in the 90s women in power, especially in sci-fi, were rare.
Yeah.
And there was pressure not to appear too emotional or too soft. Um but I do find that even the character of Janeway, she often masks personal pain, sort of like
Oh,
loneliness,
yes.
fear, etc., to
Hmm.
preserve her authority and to set an example.
I've seen people say that she spends an awful lot of time in the ready room, and I think that's partially why.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I find that there is epic double standards where Kirk's passion or Cisco's aggression are
Mhm.
seen as leadership traits,
Yes.
while Janeway is expected to remain composed and maternal yet authoritative.
Yeah.
Um, I find the character probably likely overcompensated at times. Um,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it did make her a more layered and relatable character, but it
Yeah.
does bug me because I think if the series was made now, we'd get a different version of Janeway.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. You can tell it's kind of like there's the bits of the writing of the time coming
Berman.
into it. And from what I understand, it was a mainly male writing crew as well, wasn't it?
Berman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's why
I
we've
mean,
got some interesting parts of Star Trek Voyager. We're just mentioned Seven of Nine's outfit choice.
yes. Yes. It kind of almost felt like Janeway wasn't considered attractive enough. Excuse any baby crying you can hear in the background there. Um, but yes, it did kind of feel like that. Don't get me wrong, I love the character of Seven of Nine and stuff like that, and it just kind of felt that, yeah, she was deliberately dressed like that to appeal more to the male gaze.
Yeah.
Um,
It's 100% true. It's very very much true. I feel very much like she had to be tougher or emotionally guarded because she
mhm.
was a woman in command. Because we've seen it when we've had Michael Burnham in command of Discovery.
Yeah.
Everyone's going, oh, well, she's crying every episode. Okay, and we've had that with other captains.
Hmm.
That's never been brought up.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is some epic double standards
I do want to be a little bit positive with this, though. Yes, I think she's tried harder, but um, I think that they have shown. I mean, she's shown herself to be a leader.
Yeah,
She's shown herself to be brave, and she can make the decisions on the spur of the moment. But she's also willing to do the compromising side of it. She's just not always going to rush in head first.
yeah,
She does do that occasionally, but she will consider compromises, such as when she asks the Maquis crew to join her
yeah,
instead of setting them loose or arresting them. She's working with what she has with limited resources. She sees the advantage of having Neelix and Kes on board. She sees the morale that having Tom as a full member of the team is it will encourage. Like, so she feels promotes him.
yeah.
Um, Again, it's coming back to that hope. She's inspiring hope, while making it clear she won't take shit.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
She's truthful to our crew. It's not going to be an easy trip.
Without a doubt.
Um, we've already mentioned several selfless moments that she has, but she's also professional, smart, considerate, tough, duty-bound, yet can be flexible. Not to mention, she is being tested so much more than any other captain by
Yeah,
being just thrown in the Delta Quadrant.
yeah.
She's kind of like appreciating the finer things in life without losing sight of the big picture.
Coffee.
Um, you know, um, there's times when she is kind of more human than Captain.
Yeah,
Not that I'm saying captains aren't human, but you know what I mean. More,
yeah,
she's looking more at the humanitarian side. But kind of, she ended up doing what she felt was right, like, and is even argued with herself over it. She's determined and committed to her crew and the Federation ideals as well. There isn't much doubt as to why she quickly made Admiral on her return, to be
yeah,
honest.
100%. And that is actually something I really, really like about the movies because we did get to see her as Admiral
Yes.
ahead of Picard,
I
which,
really liked, yeah, ahead of Picard. Exactly. Everybody immediately goes, Picard.
yes,
But
yes,
yes, no, I really liked how you could still see the turmoil she feels in some of her decisions.
yes,
The Tuvix decision, you could see it. She was stern-faced when it actually happened, but I kind of felt you could see behind her eyes there was a lot of pain there with the decision she had to make.
yeah. And I
Takes
feel,
the weight of it all on her.
yeah, 100%. She does take the weight of the crew's emotional well-being
Yeah.
on her.
Mhm.
But that brings us to what does Kate Mulgrew bring to the role that no one else could?
One sec, sorry, I had a little bit extra on that.
Okay.
Sorry. Um, she's had to deal with a lot of shit that the other male captains haven't in the other series. She's gone with ship invasions, murder without a proper prison available. She's had to be judge, jury on that. Stranded on a primitive planet without technology.
Yeah.
Time travelers. Q.
Yeah.
Many, many, many first contacts. A reputation that precedes her, which isn't really warranted. That is one of my ones that I wanted to really pick up on there. Everyone believes that they killed the caretaker. Yes, the array did get blown up by them, but they didn't actually kill the caretaker. They see her as a bringer of destruction, and she is at a disadvantage whenever meeting new factions or aliens. She's starting from the back foot, almost like a lot of women say they feel about getting ahead in their careers.
That's so, so true.
I think it's relevant to a lot of women, like especially at the time when this was out, and even still today with the pay gap and stuff like that. But that's political. I'm not getting into it. But that's just an example of what is going on today and how I think Janeway is still relative to that conversation.
She is very, very much is. Yeah, I can't say anything better than that. You've just bow to you with this one. But yeah,
I like to make it relative.
yes, no, and damn girl, yes you do. Okay, what does Kate Mulgrew bring to the role that no one else could? Because you've seen her in a lot of different things, haven't you?
Well, not a
She's
lot of different things. I've seen her in a couple of different things.
yeah.
I've heard people say that if Janeway is likable, it's because of Kate Mulgrew. We all know how much I love Kate Mulgrew. I've said it
Yeah.
several times already during this episode.
Yeah.
She's got a certain tone of voice. It's authoritative, but like it can be soft too. It's a unique husky voice, commanding but warm. This is her voice. I think it's charming, but I know I've heard some people say it's kind of like it's unusual, like an old-timey wise guy, huh?
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's like, oh, it's nice to have Flemeth from Dragon Age have adventures in space.
Yes, because obviously this is not the first. Star Trek Voyager was not the first thing that you've heard her in,
No,
because
no,
you
no,
know
no.
her from this beforehand.
Yes, I do. I do. I was a Janeway fan before Janeway, although I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of like she focuses on her as a capable leader and a leader and dedicated role model for younger audiences, particularly girls. She has a long, meaningful relationship with this character.
Hmm.
Um, Mulgrew emphasizes Janeway's importance as a role model for young girls and the importance of her being free from romantic entanglements to better serve that purpose as well.
Yes.
I think that Kate has truly an in-depth understanding of the character and how much she came to mean to the Trek family. She's aware of the love-hate relationship, but even so, it is an important relationship. It keeps Janeway in the conversation
Yeah.
in fandoms. She knows she can be seen as an inspiration for the younger generation. I like her because she's not afraid to call out poor journalism. And I watched an interview with her recently where she wasn't afraid to ask for clarity on what the journalist actually meant with this question. Like she was asking him to explain the question before answering it, whereas some would just kind of gone with a roundabout non-answer.
Okay.
It's about Janeway. She likes to be clear.
Right.
Um, and I'm bringing back to Janeway. Mulder actually said, to bring a character like Janeway to an animated television to small children is nobly elevating, and it brings us back to what we always thought was important. Things like hope, there's that word again, promise, comradeship, fidelity, passion, science, all the noble, lofty ideas, right? That's what Star Trek is,
Yeah.
and that's what Starfleet stands for. And I just think that just backs up her understanding, and from that conveys what she brings or is trying to bring to the character.
Yeah. Yeah. I've my notes are a little bit shorter. I've put she brings well, she projects authority and empathy in equal measure.
Mhm,
She's a very commanding presence that also feels deeply human.
mhm.
I've put her voice and delivery. Her
Yeah.
voice became iconic, delivering technobabble and emotional monologues with that same conviction. Obviously, she then took that experience into Star Trek Prodigy and Dragon Age, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Um, and there is such a subtle intensity to Kate Mulgrew.
Hmm.
That I saw. I love 13, Warehouse 13. And she plays a character towards the end of that show, where the character is very, very vulnerable without weakness.
Hmm.
Um, Resolve without rigidity, which is such a rare balance. Um, and obviously, off screen, Mulgrew insisted that Janeway remain professional, respected, and like you said, she shaped the character's portrayal with an intentional depth,
Hmm.
that obviously we still know all about many years later. She still goes to conventions.
Yeah.
She still does all the things that she was doing 30 years ago when Voyager first came out. And I've had a quick Google at the previous actress, Genevieve Bujold, who was originally cast as Janeway, who left filming after 2 days, obviously due to the demands of the filming schedule for a TV show in the 90s.
Yes.
Um, like I said, I don't think Genevieve could have done it. She's an amazing actress. But this role, I feel, was very, very, very much written for Kate Mulgrew, and there is no one else who could have done that role,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think Kate has a genuine humility and thanks fans whenever she can. That's what I've noticed about watching a couple of interviews with her, or when she's gone to conventions and done panels and things like that. She thanks the fans
Yeah.
whenever she can, and she even did one by name for Michelle Stokes, who organised the Save Prodigy aeroplanes, which
Okay.
which Netflix stated were a main part of why they bought Prodigy.
That's amazing. That's, I mean,
She
uh,
found out this person's name and thanked them by name.
that's so cool. I have a habit of trying to stay out of the fandom.
I've never got into the fandom, but it was like
Yeah.
I'm aware of certain things within it.
Yeah. Which kind, do you have anything else to say on that?
No, no, no.
No. Which I feel me talking about the fandom kind of brings up the last kind of question I think that I've got around this. Do we think Janeway gets the respect she deserves within the fandom?
It's one of those split things, really. A lot of people give her respect within it, but there are a lot which don't. And I mean, it's fine, opinions are opinions, but overall, I don't think she does.
No.
Um, she could definitely get more respect due to her.
Yeah.
Um,
She's very, very much historically underrated compared to Kirk and
underrated.
yeah, sorry, underrated is the accent man. Compared to Kirk and Picard, she's
Mhm.
often sidelined, and I find that obviously back in the 90s she was very critiqued more harshly. Um,
Hmm.
Possibly, well, most likely due to gender bias. Um,
Yes.
but, and this is a big but, I do think that this is absolutely changing now with
Yes.
new generations and Prodigy's revival, because
Hmm.
I was looking at the internet, I was looking at Reddit, I was looking at
I've been
Facebook
on
groups,
Reddit.
I was looking at that, and there is an absolute renewed interest and appreciation, especially
Yes.
among women and younger fans for this
Yes.
characters.
Hmm.
Obviously we are still debating this character. There are a lot of double standards. Some fans debate her decisions more harshly than those of the male captains, but she is having a massive resurgence, and I really love it that she's gaining icon status now,
Hmm.
not for just being a female captain, but being a great captain. Period. Full stop.
Yeah, full stop. At that point,
Yes.
yes, yeah, I'm absolutely with you. When I was doing some background research as well for this, the amount of like within the last 4 years
Yeah.
posts from people saying, "No, Janeway is my favorite captain." Um, I've got one here. Behold my response on Reddit. I place her alongside Buffy as a major 90s TV icon,
Yeah.
but I feel like Voyager wasn't as popular as some of the other shows. However, Janeway's hometown recently unveiled a statue of her, so she has evidently had some impact. That was 4 years ago, that was
Yeah.
so. I remember seeing that actually, the statue. Um, yeah, it's kind of like it's going along those lines again, as you were saying, like parts of the fandom are toxic, but I think that's the same with a lot of fandoms these days. Um, there's a certain section of them that critique everything Janeway in particular did,
Yeah.
don't give her credit where it's due, and just refuse to acknowledge Voyager was quite good.
Voyager was ahead of its time.
Yes,
Voyager was
yes.
so ahead of its time.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, I remember watching it in the 90s, as I've said many, 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 many times. Um, it was ahead of its time. I find that the seasons of Star Trek that were ahead of its time are Voyager and um, Enterprise that came after it.
Hmm.
Um, they were ahead of its time because people were not prepared for the stories that were being told.
Yeah.
They were they came out at a time of very, very fluctuating TV TV styles, TV demands, what people wanted from TV, what people didn't want from TV, and very, very changing
Oh,
views on gender as
it
a
was
whole.
kind of a turning point, the late 80s, early 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, we around that time of Janeway have very, very strong characters. We have the Buffys, we have the Charmed ones.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of what other female characters that we have around those times, but it's those type of ones: the Charmed, Janeway, Buffy. Those are very, very strong characters that
We
all
had
came out.
Scully
Scully,
at that.
That was the one I was trying to think of. I was like, I knew there was another one. Those are very, very much strong female characters that
Mhm.
came out all around the same time, and it's all very, very changing opinions. And I still think the fandom hasn't got it right because we now have moved from criticizing Janeway to criticizing Michael Burnham.
Right. Unfortunately, I can't comment on that one, but I have heard of that sort of thing.
Yes. Um, that is my last question that I want to put out to the universe. But
Mm.
I want to know what are your, because I've not seen Prodigy. Um, what are your views on the character in Prodigy specifically?
Um, yeah. I do have a bit to say about that, but I just want to do one more quote first.
Okay.
This is from Jasmine Chanel, and it's on her WordPress website. And she openly admits that Janeway is her favorite captain, but she says, like, look at some of her accomplishments. She actually made peace with Species A472. She brought resolution to the Q Civil War. She completed her 75-year mission in 7 years. She literally told the space version of Satan to go back to hell. She saved thousands of alien lives on her adventure and helped Seven get her humanity back. Debatable on that one for both, but this is just what this lady says. And my personal favorite, Janeway can give you the stink eye like no one's business. Truth is, Janeway just ain't got time for your shit.
Yeah, that's
I just really
that's
like that quote from us, so I just thought I'm gonna have to stick that in. But
that's a good
yes,
one.
Prodigy. I know you haven't seen it yet,
No.
but I've really enjoyed it, to be honest. And it's kind of like back to introducing children to Star Trek at a younger age. I like how out of all the captains for the guidance role, they chose Janeway. They chose her. It's kind of a circle, really. Like she had the unique position of dealing with a hologram doctor for Voyager to later come home to being the hologram guide herself.
Yeah.
Um, but I like how she's not the main character this time. Although my other half says the main character of Voyager was always Harry Kim. She was almost an antagonist in the first season because the characters that you see in the advertisements, in the adverts, they kind of accidentally steal the protostar ship
Yeah.
on which Janeway is the hologram to train the new recruits. Um, so she's kind of like almost chasing them in the first bit, trying to get them to return the ship, and um, yeah, but eventually she just kind of like becomes the mentor role for them.
Okay. Which is
Um,
which is like you said, it's a full circle.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's 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 good. Okay, so we need to answer the question, really, don't we?
Well, um, I just want to bring in a little piece of news that I know this is like 2 or 3 months old now, but I
Okay.
just put something in there. As of March, Kate mentioned there were conversations happening about the possibility of bringing a live action Janeway back. Now, in the
Ooh.
past, she's always said no, the conversations aren't happening. But this was on the Star Trek cruise.
Okay.
I got it from Sean Ferrick.
Yep.
I got it from Sean Ferrick's report on this. Um, so it's kind of like they're looking at possibly like maybe how Picard did. She is pursuing those conversations.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. But it depends on how it's going to be portrayed. She's concerned on how fans will see it and how Janeway will be portrayed, as they may not line up. And
Okay.
she doesn't want it to be a vanity piece.
Yes.
So it's one of those cases of it's got to be the right story under the right
Yeah.
circumstances.
Which is such a Kate Mulgrew approach to
Yeah.
anything she does.
I love how, even going back to Prodigy, she was aware of how much of a big thing Janeway was coming back to it.
Yeah.
And she understood that it was a big risk.
Yeah.
And she even had terms in her going back to it, which unfortunately I've not made a note of, but she did have terms.
Yeah.
She wasn't just saying yes straight up. She was like, yes, I will do it on these conditions.
Yeah.
So she has a genuine, again, it's going back to that, she has a genuine like affinity for the character, I
Yeah.
guess.
very much. It's her biggest. I would say it's her biggest performance of her acting career.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So, is Janeway the Federation's greatest villain?
No,
No.
no. I think if this episode had been done pre-Prodigy,
Mm,
possibly, possibly,
mm, really?
because she's had that resurge because she's had that resurgence. I think
Okay.
opinions. I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm speaking generally. I think
Okay.
opinions would still very be stuck in the '90s viewpoint of her. Is she morally grey and a little bit the ends justify the means? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I do not believe that she is the Starfleet's cleverest villain.
Yeah. No, I've gone with that. Yes, she's very no, she's not the greatest villain. She's very clever. She has shown she can play both sides convincingly, like a double agent.
Yeah.
But while her methods are contradictory and consistent and leave a lot to be desired, she's not a villain. Um, I'd put her as chaotic good on the D&D scale of alignment.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
almost chaotic neutral, but I think she's just kind of just over the line on the chaotic good side. Um, overall, what happens to her, the crew, the ship is a lot.
Yes.
She just wants to get them and herself home. This is the ultimate goal, and it's good for them.
Yes. I kind of agree. I do often believe that she makes massive decisions alone without consulting anyone.
She would
Um,
benefit from a good advisor. I mean, she's got some on the ship, but
yeah,
she doesn't make full use of them.
yeah. But like you said, critics often put these decisions as authoritarian, and
Hmm.
defenders call her pragmatic and brave.
Yeah.
I I'm in the middle because she's morally grey.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't believe she is truly a villain.
As I was saying before, I think ultimately it's just she is utilitarian,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Um,
can be morally grey at times because we mentioned it before, the trolley problem, where you've got the two train
yeah,
tracks and you pull the lever, which way is the train going to go? Is it going to run over the grandma or is it going to run over the two kids?
yeah. There is a no-win situation in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah.
This is possibly one of my favorite series because this was the first one that I watched all the way through as it came out. I can remember being in London and they had the most amazing back when HMV was like amazing. They used to have like the DVDs in
Yes.
this it was in this display and it was like the Borg were in this display and I was in London in I want to say 2001,
Right.
so it must have been yeah it was definitely Borg. I can remember being a brownie on my last ever brownie London trip and I can remember passing this display every time and just loving it. Voyager is one of the best series of Star Trek.
Yeah. Hmm.
Should we talk about what we're doing next week or next 2 weeks, two
I
weeks
think
time?
Jamie is my favorite captain.
Do you?
I think Jamie is my favorite captain.
Okay.
Maybe if
I
we maybe if we did an episode like this on every captain, I might change my mind. But I think it's because we've done a deep dive on her that I'm kind of like appreciating the situation a bit more.
yeah, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. She's not my favorite.
I think I'm saying at the minute.
Yeah, she's not my
I don't think
favorite.
it's yeah.
Yes. But what are we doing in two
Right.
weeks' time, Sarah?
Right. Well, first of all, so we've got at the time of this episode's release on the Saturday, tomorrow could be the first birthday of Wonk.
Woohoo! We're 1 year old.
Already 1 year since our first episode. That's kind of like blowing my mind. Uh, so June is going to be our Wonk birthday episodes for both of them. We're going to cover two of our favorite characters or actors in further character breakdowns, I think. And if anybody wants to guess who they are, leave us a comment in the box below. But we've got another thing. Wonka co-hosting the Nerdy Up North quiz with the Velvet Snatch at Geek Retreat in Sunderland on the 14th of June. And we're going to be raising money for charity, for a local charity. We're going to finalize all those details in the coming week or two. So that's exciting. I love
We are.
Velvet's quizzes, and I've been in all but one, and it's just a really fun few hours out the house and stuff.
Yes.
So our other podcasty friends, Monsters Up North, have a very special guest on Monday in Ian White.
Excited.
Oh, he's a good chat. The main podcast I've had him on as well. He's good, very good to chat to. We've got Top Grumps on Tuesdays, and they've recently started doing live episodes, and it's absolute chaos. Rumblecast on Wednesdays. That's about once a month, I think, at the minute. We've got Anime Club on Fridays.
They're also live.
Oh, they're doing live completely
Yeah,
now.
I think so.
Oh, okay. There's another live one for you. Then you've either got us or Countdown to Doomsday on Saturdays. Main Pod on Sundays. You've got Gigs Up North. They've just had an episode out this week. Trekking Up North are over doing their own thing on their own YouTube channel. But of course, there's also quite a new thing where we've got the community podcast where you can talk about your own little nerdisms in short episodes, or you could do one long episode if you wanted. If you want to talk to Paul or Sammy about that, leave them a message. But yes, Nerdy Up North have something for all your nerdisms.
Very much.
That sounds like a proper sponsorship, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It was quite professional. I'm
Nerdy Up
proud.
North have something for all your nerdisms.
Yes.
Right, time to sign off, Becca.
Keep your hearts full and your fandoms fierce, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Space, the final frontier. Yes, the Wonk ladies are delving into Star Trek, which I'm very excited about because I know how much passion and how much the love of these characters are mean to Becca and Sarah. And they are picking one of the strongest, most impressive captains, I would say. Yes, Janeway. I was a Voyager fan. It's strange when it comes to Star Trek. I've got a very much a love of Star Trek. Not all Trek, like Deep Space Nine wasn't my jam. I couldn't get away with it. But Voyager and Next Generation, and I will go out and say it, I do think Janeway is a better captain than Picard. I found her more engaging, more like scary at times as well, where Picard was had his strengths, shall we say. I'm not going to go there. But yeah, I love Janeway, and she is my second favourite captain, because I am a Captain Kirk fan. But yes, Janeway for the win. Stay nerdy, everyone. Bye.